Going on, my friends? I'm Rick, and this is your seat at the table, and we are going to talk about the least popular of the remaining large periphery states, which would be the uh, Outworlds Alliance, which is sad because they're not that bad. They're just really backwards. So starting with during the reunification war, people often speak of the reunification war as though it were a single chunk of history. Nothing can be further from the truth. The War in the Periphery was a collection of 4 different wars, each with a distinct flavor and characteristics. Each must be treated separately in the light of the different circumstances that each reflected. From the Wars of Reunification by Professor Helmuth Kohlberg Fitzberg of the Scion Free Press, 2612. So while the war for the Taurian systems was occupying most of the Star League military's attention, the struggle for control of the Outworlds Alliance was no less fierce, though the circumstances were rather different. Indeed, it was the victory over Robstart that would serve as a signal for the combined Star League and Draconis Combine forces to advance on the Outworlds Alliance. Unlike its Turian counterpart, which was heavily industrialized, the younger Outworlds Alliance was largely agrarian since its founding in 2415. Even after 160 years, most of the inhabitants of the Alliance preferred a simple existence uncomplicated by history. Only a few Alliance worlds, such as Alpharaz and Cerberus, had an industrial base at all. And indeed, in less than 120 light battle mechs, many of these hastily converted agromets were available to the Alliance inventory. With the Taurian campaign in full swing, General Amos Forlong, commanding Starleague's outward front, opened his own campaign against the Alliance by occupying the mining worlds of Grobid and Bryceland in 2581. These engagements, the Second Corps regulars easily scattered the Alliance militia. In conjunction with Hurlo's initial movements, the Fifth Corps and an auxiliary brigade of Cretan troops stationed on a wide arc between Delacruz and Pondicherry began their own advances. Winslow, Shremek, and Tabiama fell quickly as the forces of the Star League pressed against the unprepared or incomplete Alliance defenses. By September 2581, it appeared that the war against the Alliance would be easy pickings for the League. In early October, Furlong decided to mass 2 divisions of his own Second Corps for a quick knockout blow directed at Alvarez itself. Lawrence Davion, President's Federated Sons, had more than a little reason to be uncomfortable about his present standing. Since joining the Star League, the Federated Sons had been under increasing social and economic pressures because of its fiscal policies were so badly in need of reform. Although the Star League offered some financial aid, it was far less than Lawrence Davion had hoped. Other issues irritated Davion President. By joining the Star League, Lawrence would hope to obtain a formal declaration confirming Davion control over the contested Chesterton worlds. Not only did the pronouncement fail to materialize, but the First Lord proposed and redefined the Capellan Confederation, Federated Sons border in favor of the Capellans. Though Lawrence narrowly managed to veto such a move, he felt betrayed by the Star League's, quote, justice. And why is that important? Because it's important. Following Ian Cameron's Pollock's proclamation, President Gregory Elivar of the Alliance met with planetary representatives to discuss a proper response to the First Lord's ultimatum. From this meeting, it soon became clear that few of the Outworld's representatives favored accommodation with that, quote, Cameron bunch. Knowing that he could never hope to defeat Star League militarily, Gregory decided to try to win the war on the diplomatic front. In June 2581, as lead elements of the League's Second and Fifth Corps began to take up positions along the Alliance border, a secret mission from Alcaraz was detached to the Federated Sons capital in Avalon. The Consadine mission, named after the Alliance person, I can't, Plenipotentiary, I know what the word is, I just can't pronounce it. Amanda Considine was under orders to strike a deal with the Federated Sons. Access to water-rich worlds along the Alliance Davion border would be offered in exchange for Davion support in the Star League Council. So basically, they knew they couldn't. The Outworlds Alliance was in no condition to fight any kind of campaign of any significant point at this stage of the game, and their leadership knew it. So they tried to find other avenues to pursue something to help keep this from happening or to mitigate the worst of it. Against this background, Amanda Condesine proposed a deal with Lawrence de Davion that could not refuse. She planned to drop a treaty that would give the Federated Sons protectorship of a dozen agricultural worlds along the Federated Sons Alliance border once the war was over. Post-war control of the Alliance, quote, breadbasket would not only aid the Sons' economic recovery, but would prevent their occupation by House Corita. In exchange for this concession, the Federated Sons would pledge their covert support of the Alliance until overt political pressure could be brought to halt the League's conquest of the entire alliance. Take this into account. There was another reason why the Davions were not overly keen on this conflict happening was because they were engaged in conflict elsewhere. Their forces were helping in the Star League against other periphery states, and House Creta, if they gained any significant gains in the Outworlds Alliance, would basically have an end run around the Federated Sons and be in a position later to cause deep strike issues into the core of the Federated Sons from the Periphery era, and to prevent that from happening was in the best interest of Davion. So Davion found value in this proposed alliance. So the formation of the Pitcairn Legion. The summer of 2581, Lawrence Davion raised 3 regiments of, quote, volunteers drawn from among the experienced mech warriors of most trusted household guards. The Pitcairn Legion, named for its commander, arrived on the Alliance world of Severon in October 2581, just in time to blunt Furlong's deep space drive on the Alliance capital. As Furlong troops were primarily from Davion space, the intention was probably to have them rendezvous and wait for further orders. It's unthinkable that Lawrence Davion intended to send Davion troops against Davion's, quote, Star League troops. Furlong did not recognize Lawrence's authority to order troops into what he regarded as his own war zone, however, and fired upon the Davion house troops on sight. There were heavy casualties on both sides before Pitcairn, under a flag of truce, managed to convince Furlong that they were indeed supposed to be allies. With 2 of his prized regiments badly damaged by the unexpected resistance, Furlong was forced to halt his assault. After Corita, reinforcements from the 7th, 19th, and 24th Gallatin Rangers arrived in late October, he resumed attack on Severon. With the elements of surprise gone, the superior numbers of Star League mechs routed the Severon militia. But Furlong failed to capture or destroy his new enemy. He had taken control of the planet, but the Pitcairn Legion managed to get away under a well-executed rearguard action the night of October 28th. Fierce foes. Everything we experienced left us unprepared for what we found on Severon. Instead of a motley bunch of dirt farmers and tradesmen armed with slug throwers and petro bombs, we found thousands of determined locals backed by 8 battle mech battalions, all well armed and well disciplined and well led. Far from running away at the first sight, the locals launched a series of well coordinated counterattacks. In 8 days, we lost over 20 mechs, many at the hands of long range artillery that pummeled us at every quarter. In lieu of amassed batteries of artillery, enemy wasps and stingers repeatedly closed with us, often engaging in hand-to-hand combat while warhammers kept our reinforcements pinned down. Through it all, I couldn't help but wonder who these guys were. Captain Turleen of the 44th Syrian Light Cavalry, and published letter 2581 at Comstar Archives. After a hasty retreat, Star League was poised for a final lunge on the Alliance capital, Alvarez. Indeed, its embarkation date set by Furlong was 2 days off when the word came from Terra that further moves against the Alliance were temporarily suspended. The reason for this sudden check was the destruction of the Davion fleet off Tintavia earlier that summer. Good to make his word, Lawrence Davion demanded that the Star League make good his losses in the Concordat War. With General Wexworth's fleets already fully committed, the only alternative left to the High Command was to transfer units from Furlong's command to keep peace with its irritated member state. The general was forced to look on helplessly as a third of his fleet was reassigned to the Taurian Concordat front. The strategy of savagery. Unable to strike at the Alliance capital, Furlong widened his scope of activities. Using Severon as his center of operations in the first half of 2582, Furlong's battle mech divisions took possession of agricultural worlds of Kennard, Tancred, Bohr, and Pitcairn, while Coritian auxiliaries took control of Valentia and Bad News during the same period. As the summer turned to fall, easy gains abruptly ended when the 4th Ragazoo Brigade dropped on Bergen, went head-to-head with a recently deployed Pitcairn Legion. Recently redeployed. Unable to make headway against the veteran mech warriors, the Cretan warriors took out their frustrations on the local populace. Wanton destruction and the execution of civilians become commonplace as more Corita regiments joined the fray. People of the Alliance had been embedded from the start of the operation, but under brutal military governor like Furlong, things went from bad to worse. November 23rd, after a fierce and bloody battle for the control of the Axle factory works on Medron, Furlong ordered one out of every 10 citizens executed as an example to others who might want to oppose the will of the Star League. Such incidents, repeated on a dozen Alliance worlds, succeeded only in strengthening the Alliance resistance movement. By winter, the ranks of the Alliance militia had swollen to thousands of individuals who had nothing more to pay back the invaders in their own kind. First to feel the effects of this new patriotic zeal were the troopers of the 37th Brigade of the 5th Corps, who landed on Haynesville in February 2582. After securing the plant's water purification plant, the 37th was suddenly surrounded by hordes of militiamen under the command of Captain Joshua March. Senior officer in Pitcairn's Legion, March had spent the winter months training his charges anti-mech warfare. Mortars and missile launchers, the March's group managed to prevent the 37th from expanding its foothold on the planet. In March of 2582, the arrival of Pitcairn's Legion on Haynesville sealed the fate of the 37th. March pressed his advantage by launching a series of attacks to disseminate a larger force than he actually had. He was playing a dangerous game, risking the possibility of bringing a stronger response than necessary to wipe out his troops. March's bluff worked, however. The brigade losses approaching 25% by the end of the month, with available stores running low and no chances of acquiring food or provisions from the locals. Brigade Commander Sexton was convinced that he was facing overwhelming odds. Under a flag of truce, he began negotiations with March's representatives. 48 hours later, a scant 2 days before a relief force headed by Furlong himself arrived on the scene, Sexton capitulated to his Haynesville opponents. Quickly loading up all the captured battle ammunition he could, March departed Haynesville 3 hours ahead of the arrival of Furlong's advance scouts, leaving Sexton and the now unarmed 37th to their fate. Furlong later tried and executed Sexton for his, quote, cowardice under fire. News of Sexton's surrender sent ripples throughout the Periphery. For the first time, a collection of farmers and merchants had overcome Star League troops. So you get that. And then the Corridas were acting as well and causing all kinds of extra problems and grief. So down here, toward the conclusion. By the summer of 2584, General Furlong was ready to force the final contest with the Outworlders. Unfortunately for him, fortunately for the Alliance, the chance never came. The assassination of General Kincaid, General Furlong was selected to continue the war against the Concordat. Summer of 2584, Amos Furlong handed over command to Major General Franklin Barnex. The transfer of Furlong to War Alliance gradually wound down. Unable to contain reinforcements for a major push on Alvarez, and all too conscious of the fact that another Trumbull War would spell the end of his military career, Barnex remained content to hang on to the worlds of his predecessors. In 2585, a Star League Peace Commission succeeded in negotiating a peace for Cerberus, granting Alliance local autonomy under the direction of a council of Terran policy directors. Alliance originally offered a suit for peace in return for the concession that Furlong had be tried on Alvarez for his crimes, but the Star League refused. In retrospect, one can say that the Outworld Alliance did not actually win their war against the Star League, but neither did the Star League actually win its war either. In the end, the two sides reached a compromise that each accepted for the lack of anything better. 12 men and women, most of them civilians, had lost their lives to win this peace. So the Outworld Alliance, out of the four major periphery powers that were engaged during the Unification War, the Outworld Alliance is the only one who did not see its capital world invaded and conquered by the Star League forces. It was through diplomacy that particular campaign was concluded. So, excuse me, coughing. You have a dry throat. Outworld Alliance. Of all the government systems emerged in Periphery. Okay, so if we talk about if the Taurian Concordat is Space Texas, and the Magistracy of Canopus is, I don't know, Space Nevada, then the Outworlds Alliance must be Space Tennessee or Kentucky or Space Northern Missouri and Southern Iowa. I'll pick on my own state there too, there, folks, because for the majority of the population, they're not that I want to say they're pacifists, but they're a lot like the Mennonites and Amish. Okay, they really don't believe in armed conflict or conflict in general, confronting others. They don't believe in technology, or they use the minimalist amount of technology as possible. Mostly agrarian as much as possible, etc., etc. So, of the government systems emerged in the Periphery, the Outworlds Alliance claims the strangest collection of separatist and antisocial types. Indeed, many political commentators have referred to the Outworlds Alliance as a geographical expression of collective political chaos. Unlike the Taurian Concordat or the Magistracy of Canopus, the Outworld Alliance was never intended to be a lasting political entity. Indeed, its existence was due to an accident much as by design. The founding father of the Outworlds Alliance was Admiral Julius Santiago Abelard. As a junior naval officer in the closing years of the 2300s, Abelard was appalled by the ease by which the states of the Inner sought to settle their differences through increasingly destructive wars. Withdrawing to the worlds of Alvarez in 2413, Abelard devoted the rest of his life to literary denunciations of the warmongers of the major houses. Although he may have planned to live out his life in obscurity, Abelard became the leader of a virtual cult. His compassionate pleas for an end to war created the Omnis, a new philosophical sect, advocating the rejection of any technology that did not contribute to the preservation of life. Followers of the Omnis blocked Abelard's agrarian haven in the Periphery, much to his chagrin of the Herman-like Abelard. Before long, people from every social order began to descend on his home on Alvarez. As hundreds quickly became thousands and thousands became tens of thousands, Abelard's homestead was quickly overrun with political and social dissidents. Spanning outward from Alvarez in all directions, Omnis farmers and their supporters began to colonize neighboring star systems in a frenzy, persuaded by Abelard's writings that the galactic doomsday was just around the corner. Faced with the growing problems of managing and caring for a well-meaning but technologically inept multitudes on his doorstep, Abelard was forced to do the one thing he hated most, to create a government able to provide for the needs of his newfound followers. The result was the Outworlds Alliance, a union born more of necessity than actual desire. Since the beginning of the 31st century, the situation in the Outworlds Alliance has become particularly grim. With a general loss of technology, Alliance worlds have suffered from declining population and literacy levels. Although protected by a strong military, many of these planets are unable to feed their own people. The people feel that their government has betrayed them, and there have been many riots and demonstrations against the hereditary Abelard regime in recent years. Although no one has yet seriously challenged the right of House Abelard to rule the Outworlds, the armed rebellion is likely a deteriorating situation if it does not reverse itself. The sphere of influence. The Outworlds Alliance is the second largest periphery state and the weakest of the major alliances, both politically and economically. Lying at the juncture between the Draconis Combine and the Federated Suns, it consists of 38 inhabited worlds involving space approximately 55 parsecs in diameter, which is one-fourth of its former size. Its attempts to hold on to these few remaining worlds have created serious economic and political problems. The threat of rebellion stems not so much from political dissent as from the Alliance's inability to feed and care for its magnitudes. In recent years, renegade mercenary bands have staged frequent raids on Alliance worlds, seriously disrupting commerce and trade. With less than 40 serviceable jump ships, the merchant marine cannot hope to protect its outermost worlds. Numerous planetary parliaments have criticized the Abelard's commitment to maintaining the Alliance military, particularly the aerospace arm at the expense of the industrial base. Barring a major change in politics on the executive parliament, the military will continue to receive the lion's share of Alliance's meager resources. Social political structure. Ratified in 2417, the Alliance Charter is a basic government within the Alliance, Outworlds Alliance. Its provisions guaranteed all citizens of the Alliance the freedom of expression, freedom of religious belief, and the right to pursue any lifestyle or economic pursuit does not infringe on the rights of other citizens. Alliance citizenship is granted at birth, while individuals may be naturalized after a 10-year residency and demonstrable proof of his productivity in society. The Alliance Charter created the framework for streamlining representative government. While acknowledging the right of the House Abelard to hold executive power, representatives of the Alliance citizenry must agree unanimously on legislation before it becomes law. Likewise, the Charter allows for the establishment of planetary representative bodies, known as planetary parliaments, and judicial courts of appeal, which protect the rights of the citizens from the governmental abuse. When the Alliance military was established in the mid-2800s, the Alliance Charter was amended to include the fourth government organ, the Alliance Military Review Board. So we got the government structure, executive parliament, Planetary parliaments, courts of appeals, military review board. Political goals. The primary political objective of the Outworld Alliance is survival. More than 2 centuries of isolationism has left it with little economic or scientific vitality. Faced with an industrial decline to pre-Star League levels, the Alliance has recently opened its borders to immigration from the Draconis Combine and the Federated Suns. The last decade has begun to offer trade agreements permitting outside interests to mine Alliance worlds in exchange for technological contributions. President Neil Avalar hopes that the influx of new people and technologies will improve the economy, although many have argued that the influx of foreign concerns may threaten the Alliance's independence. So interstellar relations. Relations between the Federated Suns and the Alliance have improved over the last decade, largely because Neil Avalar has granted House Davion right to exploit lucrative mining sites within the Alliance. Draconis Combine relations in the Alliance are cautious and reserved. Although Draconin merchants have been lately allowed limited trade with the Alliance, many Outworlders still look upon the Combine as a greedy empire. They like to snatch up the Outworlds. The Taurian Concordat, Comstar, etc. Normally suspicious of any non-Periphery peoples, the Alliance has eagerly welcomed Comstar within its borders since the late 2790s. Of all the Periphery states, the Alliance is the least resistant to the presence of Comstar facilities within its domain. Recent years, many Outworlders have joined Comstar as prospective acolytes. The Executive Department hopes that existence from Comstar may help stabilize the government and its economy. Right. The average Alliance citizen, however, seems to view Comstar as a brotherhood of magicians at best or a grand coven of witches and warlocks at worst. Because the average Alliance farmer and shepherd lacks even the rudimentary education, he often views sincere alarm anything that smacks of Comstar. Strengths and weaknesses. Of all the Periphery states, the Outworld Alliance is the freest and openest society. This strength is also its greatest weakness, making the people of the Alliance highly resistant to change. Representative democracy is rather inefficient, especially when the unanimous approval of the Parliament is necessary to enact legislation. Religion and philosophy. Within the Outworlds Alliance, all religions and philosophical disciplines are tolerated. Unlike many worlds in the inner sphere where different religious communities coexist in the same area, Outworlders of various religious persuasions have settled on different planets. For example, the capital world Alprez' predominant religion and faith is Islam, while in the provincial capital Remora, the dominant faith is Taoism. Many of the philosophical doctrines in the Alliance, the Omnis Creed predominates. Amish is similar to cultures of the Mennonite and Amish religious groups of the Terra during the 19th and 20th centuries. Forswearing the evils of technology and even its simplest forms, the Amish advocate an agrarian, close-knit, decidedly anti-militaristic lifestyle. This last facet of Amish culture has a major impact on Alliance society. At the height of the Outworlds Alliance, over 2/3 of its citizenry were members of the Amish Creed, thus in a position to prevent the creation of a standing Alliance military. Lack of military almost proved the Alliance's undoing in the Reunification War. Though the Amish are less influential today, their continued opposition to military appropriations is still the effect of both the government and society. Right? Military forces. The Alliance military in some ways is a contradiction in terms. For most of its history, there was no standing army except for local retainers of House Avalar. With the outbreak of the Reunification War, the Amish militia began to evolve into the state's sole defense. These ill-equipped citizen soldiers did little to slow the hordes of the Star League, although Alliance and government had to accept the military restrictions that the Star League imposed on them after the war. Alliance leaders also recognized the day would come again when they would have to fight for their freedom. Gradually, the concept of maintaining a professional military arm became accepted in the Alliance. In the years since the beginning of the Succession Wars, the Alliance Military Corps, or AMC, has been based on civilian militia forces, albeit one well-trained and well-equipped. The Alliance has made aerospace fighters its primary offensive defensive arm because Outworlders disdain battlemechs as a symbol of inner-sphere destructiveness and a tool of petty tyrants. Although the Alliance maintains battlemech troops, these warriors have neither the high status nor high wages they command in most other armies. Alliance military is unique in its total lack of mercenary units. The Alliance Charter specifically forbids the use of such troops in the Outworlds. So we got uniforms and ranks, structure of the AMC, Alliance Aerospace Arm, Alliance Ground Arm, Alliance Service Arm, unit profiles. So, following profiles select regiments, typical military units that may be found in Outworlds Alliance, deployment of forces, right? Alliance Grenadiers, things like that. Personalities, brief atlas of the worlds. Alpharez, the capital, has roughly 2.1 million people on the planet. So you can see Severon 1.2 million. No massively heavily populated planets exist out here. The population's pretty diminished. So that gets off into independence. And like I said, I intend to do videos on all these independents, these significant independents too, at a later date. Just out of curiosity, we're going to pop into this field manual. No, we're not, because the Periphery field book I have that I've been reading at work, it goes into better detail on the particular military, the way the military units in the Outworlds Alliance is set up. It's predominantly aerospace with a smaller ground detachment with battle mechs and tanks and infantry working to hold and defend specific locations, while the most offensive operations are conducted by aerospace forces. But anyway, that's the Periphery of the Outworlds Alliance. Not quite done with this yet. I'm going to do a video here in a week or two on the fourth Periphery power that's no longer in play. The one that lots of people love to hate, few people talk about. And yet it's key to most of the history of the Inner Sphere since the beginning and the end of the Star League up until and then how it still plays out and its implications and its former leadership still haunt elements of the Inner Sphere and the clans today. And we're talking the RimWorld's Republic, right? You can't really do the Periphery without at least doing the RimWorld's Republic. The downside of the RimWorld's Republic is that there's no real, I have not had an entry in any of my books that focus specifically on it, but there's enough stuff scattered between a couple different books for me to do a video on it, which I'm going to do. So until next time, this is Rick, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.